smoked him right in the middle. What's wrong with that
Smoke
action?
show, baby.
I'm just saying. What's wrong with that? Before you become an aggressive bow hunter, you have to define basically what you're comfortable with and also where you're hunting.
Well, we just had 4 nice bucks, 75 yards in front of us, feeding placidly.
I'm Robb.
And this is Deer and Deer Hunting TV.
Well, that's a nice gut shot, Dan. You been practicing much or what?
You had to notice that, didn't you?
Yeah, well, look at mine. Not much better.
Outdoor writer Bob Robb is at Trophy Ridge Outfitters in Carlisle, Wyoming for some pre-rut bow hunting action. In addition to his writing, Bob is well known for some of his more aggressive archery tactics. He's not the type to just sit in one spot for 5 days straight and walk away empty-handed. Today we catch up with Bob in camp and learn how becoming a more aggressive bow hunter can help increase your odds of success.
So by nature, I'm an aggressive bow hunter. I believe in trying to make things happen more than I like to let them happen to me. Before you become an aggressive bow hunter, you have to define basically what you're comfortable with and also where you're hunting. And by that I mean, back east, if you're hunting a very small piece of ground and your bucks on your property are limited in number, you can't really afford to blow that buck off the property or somewhere else where you're not going to have another shot at it. Whereas out west, especially if you're hunting vast tracts of public land, if you blow a stalk on a deer or something happens, yeah, it's a bad deal, but you can go find another one. So you can be a little more aggressive out west just by nature. That's just kind of the nature of the beast. So you have to sort of play it by ear and set your standards based upon the parameters that you're given on the hunt. The size of the land, the number of animals, the time of year, the weather, everything plays into it. So here in Wyoming, where we're hunting with Trophy Ridge Outfitters, being aggressive means different things. One thing that you can't do hunting whitetails here is try to sneak up on them on the ground. Their ears, unless the wind is really blowing, their ears are just too good and they're going to hear you. Even sitting in a blind or in a tree stand, you have to be uber quiet with these things. So for me, the aggressive approach is not running and gunning as a spot and stalk hunter. It's running and gunning and moving my stand sights and moving a stand from A to B to C based upon deer movement and deer behavior over the course of 2 or 3 days. You know, what we saw here this week was deer concentrating on giant alfalfa fields. Finding out exactly where those deer enter the field is a crapshoot. And that's not really a good bow hunting tactic to me. I like to call it the little trails that they come into a field are the spokes of a wheel. Where they end up in the field is the hub. You want to hunt the hub. That's where the action is. So when I know by observing from far away where that hub is, I attack that hub. I don't wait for them to maybe walk by me coming up a spoke, because I could sit there forever and watch them come out different trails.
Land of Whitetail is brought to you by
So you've put in countless hours of scouting. You've collected thousands of images from your trail cameras, and you've learned how to become mobile with your hunting setup. But what happens when you locate the central hub where the deer tend to congregate and it's not at an ideal location? Just how aggressive are you going to have to be to hunt the hub?
So when you finally find that hub, It depends on where it is. If it's close enough to a tree line where I can set a tree stand, I love to set a tree stand for the obvious reasons that we all hunt out of trees. They don't smell us as easy, they don't see us, we're out of sight. If they're way off the field edge and I need to get out in that field, now I want to set a blind like a hay bale blind. Those work super good. I've also used a ghillie suit and worn a ghillie suit and taken some sagebrush with me and dug myself a little trench where I could sit down in a ghillie suit and sat there and look like a sagebrush bush. That's worked for me too. You always have to watch the wind. You always want to try to hunt in the shade, and you always want to hunt where it's quiet. So if you're out there in the field and the deer are going to come to you, even if it's windy, generally speaking, that last hour or 30 minutes of the day, the wind's going to die down and things are going to get uber quiet. So when you set up on the ground, clear away all the brush, leaves, sticks, anything that your feet shuffling might make noise when those deer get close. Silence is everything.
Another aspect of aggressive archery is going to be your choice of broadhead. And one of the oldest debates in the archery world is mechanical versus fixed blades broadheads. Bob joins deer and deer hunting host Dan Schmidt to share how his broadhead choice can have a major effect on his bow hunting style. After all, we all know that your broadhead can be the difference between a lost deer and a full freezer.
Mechanical broadheads.
The business end of the arrow.
The business end. Now, in your opinion, and now your opinion I value highly because you have more bow hunting experience than anybody I know, has the mechanical broadhead completely replaced fixed blade broadhead?
It has not, but it's close. And there are some places where it's still illegal to use mechanical. In Idaho, for example, no mechanical broadheads, period, end of story. Can't tell you why.
Is that just one of these dumb deer laws that
It's one of these dumb deer laws.
Yeah.
If you go overseas and hunt South Africa or that kind of thing, there are some species where you have to hunt with a fixed blade broadhead. You know, I shot a Cape buffalo a few years ago. The law was a 2-blade, one-piece broadhead. That's the law.
Now, are there cases, you're hunting everything. You're hunting elk, you've hunted moose, you've hunted muskox, you've hunted all these things, bears. Is there an animal still that you will say, no, I'm only hunting with a fixed blade broadhead?
Not in North America.
No.
I would shoot anything in North America with a mechanical broadhead, anything. Today's heads penetrate so well, they fly so well, they're sharp. If on a really big animal, I would shoot a heavier head, 125 grain head, and try to shoot a heavier arrow to get more kinetic energy at the target. But I have so much faith in mechanicals today, it's kind of embarrassing, really.
That's awesome.
You know?
That's awesome. I do too. So Bob, that's an interesting point you make, that you've hunted all these big game animals. In North America, you would still hunt with a mechanical on anything. Back in the day, if you were hunting with a fixed blade broadhead, it required a lot of practice and tuning. What about today? Does that eliminate your need to practice as much?
Well, absolutely not. To be a successful archer and a successful bow hunter, you have to shoot a lot. You just have to consistently shoot. It's like any athletic endeavor. The more you practice properly, the better shooter you're going to be.
We're talking aggressive archery tactics. Using your grunt call, using your rattling in an aggressive manner to get a buck to come to you. Your grunt call acts as a close range directional call. It's soft, it's subtle, it can bring a deer right in that maybe is passing by. Your rattling antlers, they're long range. Now you can rattle blindly, no bucks around, and bring one in. That's a good tactic on a morning where nothing is happening. But if you see a buck ghosting across the field 200 yards away, maybe even 100, 150 yards in thick timber, those rattling antlers can work well too. The big thing about using rattling antlers when you're trying to bring a buck that you can see or just saw disappear is don't get too carried away, because deer will directionalize on that noise.
Bob Robb is no stranger to the West. He knows that being here in late September is going to force him to use some of his more aggressive tactics. After getting his practice in, he heads out for his first sit.
What a great afternoon, huh?
Oh, it's really nice. It's beautiful.
Yeah, if we were playing football. A little hot for hunting.
Bob plans to try and locate the center hub as quickly as possible, since his time with the camera crew is limited to only a few days. Outside of just getting lucky, he knows that the only way to make this happen is to not only hunt aggressively, but to hunt smart.
Okay, so what do we got behind him? That's a pretty decent buck right there. Well, we just had 4 nice bucks, 75 yards in front of us, feeding placidly, slowly making their way to us. Had plenty of time, and then the wind just switched a little, and they got a little taste of us, and it didn't panic them, but they just turned and walked off into the trees. We went from hero to zero in like 3 seconds. It was kind of fun.
Well, luck didn't strike on day one for Bob, but he did acquire enough knowledge to begin strategizing for the days ahead. As the sun sets and the herd begins to migrate off of the alfalfa field, Bob begins to give up hope for the evening. Then, with only minutes of shooting light left, he sees a shooter peek over the hillside in front of the blind.
We're in a hay bale blind in the middle of an alfalfa field. We were surrounded by 50 deer. We had 10 or 12 bucks, 3 shooters. One was 48 yards, and I was just getting ready to let it loose, and it just didn't work out.
And with that, Bob displays his final lesson. When it comes to aggressive archery, no matter how much you practice those long shots, when you're faced with a shot just on the brink of being within bow range and the lighting conditions are less than ideal, restraint is always the best course of action. On day 5, it was time for the camera crews to head out, but Bob still had one final sit by himself. And as luck would have it, a mature 9-point buck gave him the opportunity he'd been waiting for.
Land of Whitetail is brought to you by You know, archery is simple, but it seems in today's age, we've made it very complicated, especially if you get on some of these social media sites and even, you know, the old chat rooms that are still out there about archery. It's really easy to get intimidated because one thing that's always bothered me about the archery industry is that when you get down into it, there's a lot of bullies out there. They'll tell you so many things, and especially if you're a newcomer or even, you know, a veteran bow hunter who might want to upgrade, there's guys who pound their chest and say, you know,
you're not a man if you don't do it this way, and you need to be shooting big boy equipment and yada, 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 yada. There's all sorts of advice out there. If you want some really good advice, I'll give it to you this way. I've been doing this for 30 years. You keep it simple and you use what's gonna take you there and what's gonna keep you accurate and most of all, give you confidence. If you want more confidence, shoot as heavy as arrows possible, and I would recommend trying smaller diameter arrows if you can get your hands on some. I have found that the smaller diameter arrows that have a little bit of weight to them really have improved my accuracy, especially when I'm using the premium arrows. I'm not saying go out and buy premium arrows, they're expensive. You can get by with bargain arrows, no problem, but that confidence factor definitely improves. It's no different than if you're driving a Corvette, you're gonna put premium gas in it. If I'm shooting a Corvette of a bow, I wanna put premium arrows through it. And that's what I do. But the biggest thing is make sure that the spine size is correct, and that's easy to find out. You can go on the manufacturer's website and find that. Spine size is important, as is the straightness of the arrow. These arrows today, some of these are down to 0.001 straightness. Now, can you, as an average person, tell the difference between a 0.001 and a 0.003 or a 0.004? Probably not, but if you add all those little things together, you're gonna see the difference in your groups downrange. You know, now this looks really good. We're sitting here, this is a freshly planted cornfield, a really nice spot, a hidden spot. We know a lot of deer use this area. First inclination coming in here to hang any stand, especially a ladder stand, is you're gonna find this nice runway here. And that is, first blush, yes, we wanna find a tree right here because it's gonna be a major runway for deer entering this field. I've learned over the years, not always the best choice, especially when you think about deer season as an entirety. Let's go around the corner of this field a little bit, and I'm gonna show you what I think is going to be a much better location. See, this is what I'm talking about, just the difference of about 30 yards makes. This is a buck trail. This is a tertiary trail or a secondary trail. When we look at our cornfield here, yes, we have that major thoroughfare coming in there. A lot of does and fawns. We're gonna use that throughout the year and in fall. But those bucks, most times, they're not gonna follow the beaten path. They're gonna enter that field right at dusk or dawn off of this trail, or they're gonna skirt the edge of this swamp. We got a lot of, there's hemlock, there's spruce in here, and we have a beautiful one right here on the edge of the field, again, about 35 yards away from that main trail, a much better location because we can get in there without a lot of disturbance, and we can hunt that spot for more of the deer season and get better opportunities at bucks.